My best friend told me to take care of her while I'm gone. I took it too far. I found out my best friend had been betraying me for years, not through a confession, not through proof I was supposed to see, but through a message that slipped through at the wrong moment. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it, because suddenly, every memory we shared started to feel like a lie. The moment I realized Liam had been lying to me for 2 years, I was standing in his kitchen, holding a mug of coffee he'd just made me, watching him smile like everything was perfectly fine. That smile. God, I trusted that smile through 2 deployments, a divorce, and the worst year of my life. And now I was looking at it differently, like a photograph that's been developed wrong, colors bleeding into places they shouldn't be. You okay? He asked. You went quiet. Just tired, I said. I set the mug down carefully. My hand was shaking, but I didn't want him to see that. I didn't want him to know that 30 seconds ago, while he was in the bathroom, his phone had lit up on the counter. Just a notification. Just 4 words from a contact saved as work DR that changed everything. Did she find out? 4 words, that's all it took to unravel 10 years. I picked the mug back up, took a sip, and smiled right back at him. I'm fine, I said. Tell me more about the Portland trip. And while he talked, I quietly decided that Liam had made a very serious mistake, not just in what he'd done, but in who he'd done it to. Liam and I met on a Tuesday in October, junior year of high school, when he sat down next to me in AP Chemistry and immediately copied my diagram of an atom without even asking. I told him it was wrong on purpose, just to see what he'd do. He turned in the wrong diagram, got a C-, then tracked me down after class and said, with zero embarrassment, "You sabotaged me." You didn't ask permission, I said. He laughed, that big open laugh that made teachers look up from their desks. Fair enough, I'm Liam. I know who you are, I said. You're the guy who got a standing ovation at the talent show for doing absolutely nothing interesting. It was a spoken word piece. About your sneakers. They were limited edition. That was it. That was the beginning of the best friendship I ever had, and the one that would eventually cost me more than I could have predicted. We were inseparable for the rest of high school. Same friend group, same terrible taste in action movies, same habit of staying up until 3 a.m. arguing about things that didn't matter. When his parents split up senior year, I drove him around for 3 hours while he didn't say a word and I didn't ask him to. When my mom got sick and I had to defer college, Liam deferred with me, even though he'd got into a good program he actually wanted. I'll reapply, he said. You need someone around. He didn't have to do that. I never forgot that he did. We ended up at the same state school, different majors, him in business, me in communications, roomed together sophomore through senior year, shared everything, food, gas money, each other's crises. He was the first person I called when I got my first real job at Crestline Media. He was at my side when I went through my breakup with Daniel, the one that left me genuinely broken for about 8 months. He drove me to therapy. He sat outside in the parking lot and waited. After graduation, we both ended up in the same city, Portland eventually, but first Raleigh, then Charlotte. He built a career in logistics consulting. I climbed the editorial ladder at a regional media company called Beacon Group. Different worlds, but we stayed close the way only people with real history can. Weekly dinners, group chats, vacations planned together with his girlfriend Amber, and my rotating cast of situationships that Liam found endlessly entertaining. You collect almost relationships, he told me once, like stamps. At least mine are interesting, I said. You've been with Amber for 4 years and you still ask her what she wants for dinner like you don't know. She's particular. She orders the same thing every time. Salmon, you know it's salmon. He grinned. I like giving her the option. That was Liam, thoughtful in the small ways, present in the ways that counted. Or so I thought. Looking back, there were signs I filed away as nothing. The way conversations about my promotion would shift quickly to something else. The occasional comment, light, laughing, that had an edge to it if you listen close. Must be nice to have that kind of pull at work. You always land on your feet, don't you? I took those as affection. As the kind of teasing that lives inside long friendship. I should have listened closer. The first real crack I remember was 18 months ago, when I was shortlisted for senior editorial director at Beacon. Liam knew about it. I told him everything, the interview rounds, the internal competition, the fact that my main rival for the role was a woman named Claire Sorensen who'd been at the company longer but whose work, honestly, wasn't as strong. I trusted Liam with the details. The politics. The anxiety. I didn't get the role, Claire did. I was gutted. Liam took me out for drinks and said all the right things. Their loss, you'll get the next one, you're too good for this to be a ceiling. I believed him, I always believed him. What I didn't know then, what I would find out much, much later, was that Liam had met Claire Sorensen at a networking event 3 weeks before the decision. That they'd become friendly. That friendly had become something else. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The Portland move happened 14 months ago. Liam got a contract with a firm up there 6 months, possibly longer. He was excited. Amber was already there, had been for a year, working in healthcare admin. The timing worked out. The week before he left, we had dinner at his apartment. Just us, the way we used to do. He cooked badly, as always, but with genuine effort, and somewhere in the second bottle of wine, he got quiet in that way that meant something real was coming. I need to ask you something, he said. You're going to ask me to water your plants, I said. The answer is yes, but also no because you don't have any plants. I need you to check in on Amber's sister. I looked up, Haley. Yeah, he poured more wine. She's going through something, Amber's worried. Haley doesn't really have a lot of people in the city and Amber can't be here. I'd feel better knowing someone was looking out for her, taking her out sometimes, making sure she's not disappearing into herself. Of course, I said, I meant it. I'd met Haley a handful of times. She was quiet, a little guarded but warm once she opened up. An artist. Taught painting classes, made furniture on weekends, had strong opinions about coffee that I found charming. She's good people. She is, Liam said. Just take care of her while I'm gone. Both of us would really appreciate it. I didn't know, at that moment, that this request was built on a lie. I didn't know that Liam's guilt about what he'd been doing had twisted this into something he could tell himself was redemption. That, take care of Haley, was a way of managing his conscience while he continued doing what he was doing. What he was doing was this. For nearly a year before his Portland move, Liam had been involved with Claire Sorensen. Not just involved. He had been actively feeding her information about me. My work anxieties, my interview strategies, the concerns I'd shared with him about internal politics at Beacon, things I'd told him in confidence over dinners and late-night phone calls. Claire and her mentor on the executive team had used those details to position her favorably against me for the senior director role. To frame me, quietly, as a candidate with good instincts, but questionable judgment under pressure. A phrase that came back to me later from someone who'd been in the room. I didn't know any of this when I started checking in on Haley. What I knew was that Haley was easier to be around than I expected. She laughed at the same things I laughed at. She had thoughts about everything and was never precious about being wrong. We started with coffee once a week, then dinners, then a standing Saturday morning walk along the river that became the best part of my week. I introduced her to my friends. She brought a strange, warm energy into my life that I hadn't realized I was missing. Priya knew Amber was happy about it. She texted me, Haley needs this, you're good for her. Liam knew too, he texted, I owe you one. I thought he meant it sincerely. I would later understand he meant it the way a person means it when they're trying to convince themselves the scales are even. It was Haley who accidentally handed me the thread that unraveled everything. We'd been friends for about 5 months when she mentioned, offhand, that she'd had coffee with Liam's friend from that networking event. Which one? I asked. I don't know her well, Claire something. She works in media too, I think. I felt something cold move through me, but I kept my voice even. How'd that come up? She texted me out of nowhere. Said Liam had mentioned me and that she thought we might get along. It was a little strange, actually. She kept asking about you. About me? Yeah, like how you were doing, what you were up to, whether you were happy at work. Haley gave me an odd look. I thought it was weird. I didn't say much. I don't actually know much about your work stuff. What did you tell her? Just that you seemed good, that you were focused. She paused. Why do you know her? She works at my company, I said. Sort of. I went home that night and I sat with it. The question that had started as discomfort had become a cold, clear shape. Why is Claire Sorensen reaching out to Haley? How does Claire know Haley? Through Liam. Why does Liam know Claire? I opened my laptop. I started looking. The thing about a betrayal you're slowly uncovering is that it's worse than one you receive all at once. At least a sudden shock has the mercy of being complete. This was like picking up pieces of broken glass with bare hands, finding each shard, understanding its shape, feeling the cut. I went back through things I'd dismissed. I'd been passed over for the senior director role, yes, but I'd also been passed over 8 months ago for a high-profile brand partnership project, one that Claire had led. At the time, I'd chalked it up to her having a closer relationship with the VP overseeing it. Now I was thinking about what Liam had known at that point, what I'd told him, what he might have passed along. I texted Jonah, who'd been at Beacon almost as long as I had, and who I trusted. Random question. Did you ever hear who made the case against me for the Harmon project? He took a while to respond. When he did, it was, why are you asking? Just thinking about it, something came up. A longer pause, then, can we talk in person? We met for lunch the next day. Jonah was careful at first, the way people are when they're deciding how much truth you can handle. There was a narrative, he said finally, turning his coffee cup in his hands. About you specifically, that you had a pattern of taking on more than you could handle, that you'd shared sensitive client information with someone outside the company. I stared at him. That's not true. I know that. I don't think most people believed it outright, but mud sticks a little even when it doesn't fully land. It made decision makers nervous. He looked at me. Where is this coming from? I'm starting to think it was coming from Liam. Jonah was quiet for a moment. You're Liam. My Liam. He put down his cup. That's a serious thing to say. I know. Do you have proof? I'm working on it. The problem was that I didn't want to confront Liam directly yet. Not without being certain. Not without understanding the full shape of it. The part of me that had known him for 10 years kept insisting there was an explanation, something I was misreading, some context that would make this make sense. And so I kept gathering, kept listening, kept pretending everything was normal when we talked. Liam called every week or so from Portland. Cheerful, chatty, asking after Haley, telling me about the city, the job, Amber's new apartment. I listened and responded and gave nothing away. It felt awful. It felt necessary. Then I did something that I'm not entirely proud of. Haley had mentioned that Claire had texted her again, a follow-up, trying to make plans. On impulse, I asked Haley if I could see the messages, just to understand what she was asking about. Haley handed me her phone without hesitation, with the particular trust of someone who has nothing to hide. I felt a sharp twist of guilt even as I scrolled. Claire's messages were friendly, anodyne on the surface, but she'd asked twice about whether Haley's sister Amber had said anything about Liam's work situation, whether things were stable for him, whether he seemed stressed. That was strange. That was strange in a way that suggested Claire and Liam's relationship wasn't just past tense. They were still talking, possibly still coordinating. She seems very interested in Liam's life for someone who's just a networking contact, I said, keeping my voice casual. Haley frowned. I thought so too. I wasn't going to meet up with her again. Smart, I said, and handed the phone back. I didn't sleep well that night, or the night after. What I was beginning to understand was that this wasn't just a betrayal of friendship. It was professional sabotage. Deliberate, sustained, executed by the person who had been my anchor through every hard thing I'd faced in my adult life. And as the full shape of it became clear, I felt something I wasn't used to feeling, not just hurt, not just anger, but a cold, deliberate calm. I started thinking about what I had, what I knew, and what I could do about it. The messages I found weren't on Liam's phone. I want to be clear about that. I didn't go through his phone. He handed them to me. Not intentionally. Liam came back from Portland for a long weekend in late February, a visit he said was about missing home, seeing friends, taking a break. He stayed with a mutual friend, Terrence, and we made plans for dinner, the three of us plus a couple others. It was a good night. Easy the way old groups can be. I watched Liam across the table, laughing, refilling glasses, doing that thing he did where he made every person in the room feel like they were the most important one, and I thought, you're good at this. You've always been good at this. That's the thing I missed. After dinner, he and I ended up outside alone for a few minutes, waiting for a car. The air was cold. He was relaxed, off his guard in the way you get at the end of a warm night. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned slightly, and then, this is the part I've replayed 100 times. He answered a call, said give me 2 seconds, and handed me his phone to hold while he jogged over to talk to Terrence about something. I was holding his phone, the call was on hold, the screen was lit. And below the active call, in his notification bar, there were 3 message previews, all from the same contact, CS. Did she find out? She's been asking around. You need to get ahead of this. Call me when you're alone. I stood there in the cold, and I understood completely and finally that there was no misreading this. No alternative explanation. No context that changed the shape of what was happening. He came back in about 90 seconds. Took the phone, finished the call, didn't look at me long enough to see anything in my face. Sorry about that, work thing. No problem, I said. The car arrived. We rode back together talking about nothing. He hugged me goodbye, I hugged him back. This was great, he said. I've missed you. I've missed you too, I said, and the terrible thing was that part was still true. I went home, sat on my couch in my coat, and let myself feel the full weight of it. 10 years, the person who deferred college for me, the person who drove me to therapy, the person who asked me to look after the woman who had become, without my planning it, one of my closest friends. All of it filtered through the fact that he had deliberately undermined my career, that he had fed information to a woman he was having an affair with, because that's clearly what Claire was, and let me believe that my professional stumbles were just bad luck. He had let me absorb the blows. He had comforted me while holding the knife. I sat with it for 3 days, then I made a plan. I want to be honest about what my plan was, because I think the version where I'm fully heroic isn't the whole truth. Part of me wanted to destroy him, not quietly, not cleanly. I wanted to expose everything in a way that left no ambiguity, send the screenshots to Terrence, to our whole friend group, to Amber. I wanted him to come home to a life that had been rearranged the way he'd rearranged mine. But there was Amber to think about, and there was Haley. Haley, who had nothing to do with any of this. Haley, who Liam had sent me to look after as some kind of guilt management exercise, never anticipating that we would actually become close. Never anticipating that she would become the person I told things to, including, eventually, this. I didn't plan to tell Haley. It happened because she asked me directly, 3 days after Liam's visit, why I seemed different. You've been somewhere else all week, she said. We were on our Saturday walk. What's going on? I looked at the river. How much do you know about Liam and Claire Sorensen? A pause. Who's Claire Sorensen? The woman who's been texting you, and apparently more than that. I told her, not everything at once. I laid it out carefully, the way you do when you're telling someone something that will change the way they understand their own life. She was quiet through most of it. When I finished, she stopped walking. He asked you to look after me, she said. Yes. While he was doing this. Yes. She was quiet for a long moment. The river moved. Somewhere behind us, a dog barked. Does Amber know any of this? I don't think so. She needs to know. I nodded. I'd already decided that. Here's the part where I took it too far, where I have to be honest about my own choices. I didn't just tell Amber privately. I did that first, called her, told her everything I knew, sent her the screenshot I'd managed to capture before handing Liam's phone back, forwarded the chain of professional context that Jonah had quietly corroborated for me. She was quiet on the phone in the way people go quiet when the world is reorganizing itself. She thanked me. She cried a little. She said she needed time. But then I also sent a detailed, documented account of the professional sabotage, with Jonah's written statement, and a timeline, to the executive team at Beacon Group. I didn't expose Liam socially. I exposed him professionally, in the domain where the actual damage had been done. The response from Beacon was faster than I expected. Within 2 weeks, an internal review had been opened. Claire was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The senior director role, which had never actually been filled well, Claire had struggled with the scope of it, and everyone quietly knew it, was reopened. Liam found out from Claire, who found out from HR. He called me. Tell me you didn't do this, he said. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence sit. 2 years, I said finally. You spent 2 years feeding her information about me. I lost a promotion. I lost a project. I sat across from you while you told me I'd get the next one, and you knew why I wasn't getting it. It wasn't, he stopped. It wasn't what? It wasn't intentional. It wasn't that bad. I didn't think it would. Liam, my voice was very steady. I was proud of that. Don't. He was quiet. I went to Amber, I said. I thought she deserved to know. I went to Beacon because what happened was professional misconduct and I deserved a fair shot. That's all I did. That's all you, his voice cracked. You burned everything down. You built it out of dry wood, I said. I just stopped pretending it wasn't on fire. He had more to say, I'm sure he did. I ended the call. I sat for a while in the quiet of my apartment. I thought about the 10 years, about the drives and the dinners and the 3 a.m. arguments, and I let myself feel the grief of it properly for the first time. Not the anger, just the loss. Just the real, unambiguous loss of something I'd thought was permanent. Then I put my phone face down and made myself dinner. The formal review at Beacon took 6 weeks. At the end of it, Claire resigned. The findings weren't made public internally beyond what was necessary, but enough people knew enough that the story circulated in fragments, as stories do. The senior director role was reposted. I applied again. This time, I got it. I want to be clear that I'm not sure I deserved it more than anyone else who applied. I think I was qualified. I think the path to it should have been cleaner and faster. But I hold my wins with a little more complexity now than I used to. Liam and Amber ended. She told Haley, who told me, in the careful way you tell someone news you know will land in a complicated place. I didn't feel the satisfaction I might have expected. I mostly felt sad for Amber, who had built her life around someone who had maintained a double life for at least a year. For Haley, who lost something too, even though she hadn't done anything wrong. I haven't spoken to Liam since the phone call. He texted once, about 6 weeks after, I know you won't believe this but I'm sorry, not for getting caught, for what I did. There's no version of it that makes sense and I'm not going to try to explain it. I read it several times, I didn't respond, I don't know if I will. The friends we shared divided the way they do, some drifted toward him, some toward me, most just quietly settled into new patterns that reflected the reality that what had been a shared friend group was now 2 separate constellations. Terrence stopped texting me for a while, then started again. We got coffee once. It was okay, we didn't talk about Liam. The thing I think about most when I think about this isn't the betrayal itself. It's the request, take care of her while I'm gone. I have thought about why he asked that. I've landed in a few different places. Maybe he genuinely felt guilty and thought it was a small rebalancing. Maybe he thought I'd check in occasionally and Haley would stay at a comfortable distance. Maybe, on some level, he didn't think Haley and I would actually become close, and the request felt safe to make. What he didn't predict was that I'd take it seriously. That I'd show up every week. That Haley would stop being a peripheral person in the story and become someone central to my life. Haley and I are still close. We don't talk about Liam much. When we do, it's with the kind of careful shorthand that people use around shared grief. She did the work of processing her own complicated feelings, the anger, the sense of having been positioned without her knowledge, the strangeness of a friendship that began in circumstances neither of us fully understood. Do you regret it? She asked me once. Not the friendship, the rest of it, what you did. I thought about it honestly. The beacon stuff, no, that was real damage done to me professionally, that deserved to be addressed. I paused. Going to Amber, I don't regret that either, even though I know it blew things up. She deserved to know. And Liam. I regret the version of him that I thought existed, I said. I don't regret not protecting the one who actually did. She nodded, she got it. My life is quieter now, in the way lives get quiet after a large, loud thing has passed through. I do the new job well. I'm careful in ways I wasn't before, not suspicious, just more deliberate. I notice when people deflect questions about me with humor. I notice when someone knows more about my professional life than I've told them. I am a better friend now, I think, because I understand with more precision what friendship asks of you. It asks you to be present without using that presence. It asks you to hold someone's confidence without turning it into currency. It asks you, when your friend is struggling, to drive them to therapy and wait in the parking lot without extracting what you see for later use. It doesn't ask you to be perfect. It doesn't even ask you to be good all the time. But it does ask you, in the fundamental moments, to choose the person in front of you over whatever else you want. Liam chose otherwise. And I have to hold that alongside every good thing he also was, because the truth is never the simple version. 3 months after everything, I got a LinkedIn notification I wasn't expecting. A connection request from Claire Sorensen, with a message attached. I almost closed it without reading. I didn't. I know you have no reason to open this. I'm not asking you to forgive anything. I just thought you should know. Liam approached me, not the other way around. The first time he offered information, I didn't ask for it. I used it, that's on me, and I've owned it. But I want you to understand that whoever he was in your friendship, he was also someone who volunteered to do this. I don't know why I'm telling you. I think I just couldn't leave you with a version where I was the whole reason. I sat with that for a long time. I didn't respond to Claire. I'm still not sure what I would say. But I've thought about it in the weeks since. About how there's always a layer underneath the layer you think is the bottom. About how Liam had reached out to Claire, had initiated the exchange, had not simply been seduced into a betrayal, but had in some room I wasn't in, at some moment I'll never know, decided to do it. Why? I've asked myself that question enough times that it started to lose its shape. Jealousy, maybe. A kind of slow resentment that looked like affection until the light changed. Maybe he'd always measured himself against me, and the measuring had finally become unbearable. Maybe he looked at my trajectory and his, and felt something he couldn't admit, and Claire was the outlet for it. Maybe I'll never know. Maybe knowing wouldn't help. What I know is this. I was asked to take care of someone, and I did it genuinely, which is the only way I know how to do things. I uncovered a lie that was being used against me, and I addressed it, which is also the only way I know how. I lost a friendship that I thought was permanent, and discovered that some things you think are built on bedrock are actually built on a story you've both agreed to tell. Haley texted me this morning. A photo of a painting she just finished, blues and deep greens, something that looked like water without being literal about it. This one's for you, she said. Hang it somewhere you'll see it when you're tired. I'm going to pick it up this weekend. That, at least, is something Liam gave me that he meant to give, even if he gave it for the wrong reasons. I'm choosing to keep it. If this resonated with you, share it. You probably know someone who needed to read it.